So I never sit home and apply for just one job. When I say, okay, this, now we're looking at fintechs, I will look at the best. I kid you not, I've applied to Amazon Web Services, I've applied to Google, and I go for the jobs, not, oh, I'm a data support, I apply for support. No, I will apply for senior. I've always done that. Having to adapt around being around guys, there were certain things that I wasn't prepared for. Like you're responding to something and somebody speaks over you because you're female. So before you think, oh, did I not address this issue properly? But then you realize, oh, it's actually an issue. Like I'm the only female here. People think being you is bringing all of you, like your bad attitude and just saying this is who I am. No. Being you is, I'm not trying to be like Bill Gates. I want to be Chilekwa. Bill Gates is Bill Gates because he's Bill Gates. Jeff Bezos is Jeff because he's Jeff. I'm not trying to be like Mark Zuckerberg. I want to be Chilekwa. You know the way we all work so hard, we're chasing money. And that is where the problem is. And you'll find that even now in Zambia, the startups that are thriving are the ones with women on the top, the ones around credit. Why? Because for the first time there's...
It's a pleasure to be back. We have the usual crowd, 3 and company. And this is a good first for us because we have Chilekwa Banda with us, and we hope to tap into her extremely provocative ideas. A round of applause for her, please. We had to try and break the gender stereotype because the last time it was all 3 males, so we have diffused that whole gender energy. There's some female in the room. We hopefully we intend to probably come across some of her very profound thinking and maybe just to soothe down some of this male energy in the room. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you.
And maybe for the sake of our esteemed audience, you may want to tell us a little bit about yourself, some background, some history so that they know who you are. We already know who you are.
Right.
And I want to add, she's also famous, but she doesn't always like to play to that strength.
She's famous for
don't worry. She's here to say all that.
No.
Over to you, please.
Oh, really?
Nothing controversial. Okay, thank you, Chinadu, for that introduction. Yes, I'm the one. My name is Chilekwa Banda. I am a digital financial services enthusiast. I like to call myself an enthusiast because I think even my career has really been about curiosity. Okay, I have a tech background, so I've worked with men all my life. So yeah, I think this feels like home to me. So thank you very much for having me here, and I'm excited. I'm a little bit nervous about the questions, George.
I know what you mean.
But yeah, I'm very excited to be here, and I can't wait.
Okay, cool. Actually, the person to watch out for is Gilbert. He's the
Gilbert,
one, the master of questions.
Really?
The master of questions.
Right.
Comments?
I like to know things. I'm sorry.
So, who is going to be the first to shoot the question?
Okay, I'll start.
Well, probably, don't we first have to set what the tones are? So what exactly is this podcast about in relation to her? We had to drag in an expert into the house. So maybe you want to let us first know the topic and everything else, then we dive in.
Okay.
It feels like you're putting me on the spot.
I'm sorry.
Okay. Can I tag someone?
You know what I'll do? I didn't actually give the intro justice, and I'm doing the thing that women always do. Like we downplay our accolades, our role, and let me give myself flowers.
Please.
So the digital financial services enthusiast comes from the fact that growing up, I know this is cliche, but I used to love video games.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I used to love video games. And growing up in a house where there's like four girls, no boy, so it was really a give and take.
Oh, okay.
Dad is the type of person that will let you be you, right?
Yeah.
So growing up around video games, automatically I was curious. I wanted to break things apart. I wanted to know
things work.
how things work, the thought process behind developing something. So hence, my career path was aligned towards, I want to create video games at some point. So hence me choosing the tech background. But obviously that branched me off into other things. Now, over the years, having to sit behind the computer, explaining to customers about products and services, made me also look at the customer perspective. So branching off from IT to customer services, marketing into a little bit of digital banking to a little bit of operations was a little bit challenging because most people believe that tech people don't know how to explain things to the customer. So I wanted to see for myself, like, how well do I actually explain things to people?
So you were trying to challenge the
jargon,
idea,
the idea around, too technical. I've been told that before, trying to get into an interview that has a customer-facing role. It's like, so we understand you have this background, but we're looking for somebody who can speak to customers in this way. So then they'll turn you down and say, you were too technical. And I'm like, how?
No, but again, like, if you're a technical person, can you know that you're too technical if you're not a technical? I think pretty much maybe comes from a non-technical person to get that perspective. But that's quite interesting.
But it also came from the frustration of you have your different departments. You have customer service that obviously has a certain level of understanding of how a product is working, and you're only giving them so much, so they can't really go out and explain a challenge, for example, with a product or a service. So they would obviously call back office, right? And your back office in a bank setting is your operations or digital banking or IT. In a telecom setting will be IT or the networks guys, etc. But then what was happening is we would interact with the customer at the very last minute when the customer is about to just give in. And they've had enough and they don't want the service anymore. So it was that, from the yells to you having to compose yourself. You know that whole meme around, your customer service voice went to Harvard? That is not a joke. Like, your customers, you have to get it, and then you go back and the job is like, they're there on the laptop and you're crawling under people's tables with the cables and everything. So the digital financial services enthusiast came from all that, being able to work in different environments, different organizations, seeing how people work, the different cultural aspects around work, how to lead, how not to lead, how to interact with people, when to keep quiet. Like now, I think I need to keep quiet.
We disagree.
But the one. So I just wanted to give that little background. And of course, I'm a woman in tech, so I'm also part of a Women in Tech network. And I am the chairperson of the Association for Digital Finance Practitioners.
I think you didn't do justice in the introduction.
No, I failed. Hands down, I failed. Which probably leads me to my next question. So, while we are still digging into this thing of background, obviously it would help both ourselves and the audience to get a bit more insight into yourself. Perhaps you could lead us through the journey of your career progression, because thankfully you've illustrated having worked in a couple of places. Maybe name those places and maybe what you picked up from each one of them. How did it evolve you into the person you are today?
Okay. So if I go back, I'm going to go as far back as being in college, right? I think this is a conversation I was having earlier where we're talking about this, I won't call it a bias, this movement around women and gender equality and equity and, obviously stemming from the Me Too movement, right? And me being here, automatically I can assume whoever's listening to this will be like, I hope this is not another women empowerment. Women. No, it's not a feminist run, because I have a son, right? And I wouldn't want to leave him behind, right? So when you look at my first encounter in a male-dominated industry was in class. I think at the time when we started doing my course at Zikas, it was 5 females and maybe about 11 guys, right, at certificate level.
Wow.
By the time we were getting to the degree level, I was the only female
Left.
and left, and 41 guys.
Wow. Whoa. Okay.
So,
Okay.
and fortunately, I was the top of the class. Well, until some guy.
She's the one.
There was some guy that came in. I'm going to mention his name. I will not give him the satisfaction. There was a guy that came in and just took over, and I was just like, wow. But I did get to that level where I was being recognized for my brains, right? And so having to adapt around being around guys, there were certain things that I wasn't prepared for. Like you're responding to something and somebody speaks over you because you're female. So before you think, oh, did I not address this issue properly? But then you realize, oh, it's actually an issue. Like I'm the only female here. So I had to now raise my voice. So if I do that, oh, she's emotional. You see? But if a man raises his voice, it's like, oh, he's assertive. He's, you know, great thinker, etc. That is also the same situation in the work environment, especially the corporate space. So first you have the little side remarks like, is this not the equality you guys asked for? So if, let's say I say, oh, George, please help me move that box. No, but you're one of us now. Is this not the equality you asked for? Well, it comes off as a joke, but you're like, oh, okay, these things actually do affect. So it was through those little remarks that now you start to change as you grow older and realize this is not a battle that I have to fight. It's about inclusion. How do I make them see that I'm not trying to be like them? I'm just trying to be seen. I'm just trying to be heard. Whilst we are fighting for the seat at the table, we just want you to recognize that I said something smart and it counts for something. And if I say something like, oh, I think 1 + 1 is 2, and then George comes in and says, no, I think 1 + 0 + 1 is 2. I know the guy said, oh, George, that is brilliant. What's the difference? The answer is 2. I said it first. Don't dismiss that I said it, right? So what I've done is talk about everything that women talk about when it comes to gender, equity, equality, and the gender bias, which came from the Me Too movement, right? I think this was it 2020, 2021, somewhere there, right? Before that, right? Yeah, we. You see, I don't even keep track. That's how, for me, it's like, okay, we've had people that have fought these battles for us. So what are we doing about it now? We can't keep talking about it. Now it's time to actually prove why we deserve that seat at the table.
So it's more like the talking has been done, but you wanted more actionable steps.
Exactly.
Like, okay.
So me being here and speaking about what I've done, who I am, before this, was I an equal? Of course. I'm having conversations with the three of you, right? But it doesn't dismiss the fact that I'm a female, right? If we move from here and we say, oh, maybe there's a game night somewhere and we need to be out till a certain time, at some point I'm going to leave because it's just not normal for me to be out with all of you at a certain... I've recognized that. I'm not going to fight that. It's also about me, how I feel about that, right? We're not trying to do that to become the same. I think there's value in having
those differences.
Those differences, exactly. So even in the workplace, for me, it's about, okay, I'm happy walking into a meeting in my stilettos. I love being a woman, right? Does it change how I think? No. Because at the end of the day, even in the boardroom, you're going to find, there's egos and testosterone and people arguing. But guess what having a woman in the room will do? It calms the situation. So there's value. So how do we then now marry all those things that make us similar in a unique way? How do we bring them together and coexist?
So in a way, Chilekwa, I guess from the start, I'm kind of like trying to like piece this together in a timeline where we're saying, okay, fine. Gamer, all right, ends up in the tech field doing what she's done, and she's here now doing what you're doing. I'm taking away that gender equality is adversarial, right? So it's like, it's kind of like we're battling against each other to be equal, right? Yeah, where now it becomes an issue of, it's not even about contributing. It's about if I'm doing this and you should do it as well, right? Right. And then what you are saying also is now gender equity is more of contributory, right? Celebrating our differences to achieve one goal, right? Is that what I'm getting? Is that what you're saying, right?
Yes. So equity for me is recognizing that, okay, I'll give an example.
Yeah.
There's a war here, right?
Yeah.
And we're saying on top of this war is an apple.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay? There's me.
Yeah.
I'm 5'5".
Yeah.
Okay? And then we have Chinadu here.
Yeah.
Chinadu, I assume maybe
That's sort of example.
yeah, you're taller, right?
This is a stereotype. This is what we're talking about. This is what we're talking about.
So equality says
Yeah.
both of you reach for that apple.
Exactly. Right.
True.
Right.
True.
How?
Right. Right.
I'm shorter than him. He's obviously going to reach for that apple.
And get it quicker.
But equity is recognizing that I'm shorter than him, and
Yeah.
you offer a stool
Right.
to elevate me.
Yeah.
And then you say both of you reach for the apple.
All right.
That's a very good example.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
Like level the playing field, exactly.
Yeah.
Recognize that we are the same,
Right.
but we're so different.
Right.
Yeah.
Is that what Chilekwa now would have said to Chilekwa Zikas?
Yes, definitely.
Right.
Because if I go back to Zikas, back in the day, they used to put all our results on the wall, right? I was a very noisy person. I've always been a noisy child, even in class. I think most of the noise maker list, I was always there, right?
Backbencher.
Opinionated? Maybe.
Very opinionated,
Yeah.
but in a good way.
Right. Yeah.
So when the results came out, I remember that year very well. The results came out 2006. There was a list. Okay, so everyone was looking at the list, but I didn't know because I saw the results last. So I'm short, so there's all these people, so you're waiting for people, and there was this rule like everyone's asking who's this Chilekwa, who's this Chilekwa, who's this Chilekwa, who's this Chilekwa, because I was second on that list. So I received like a Roll of Honor award that is given to the most. No, I won't say intelligent. That's a bad word.
No, don't worry, it's
The
not
most,
bad.
Consistent.
Yeah, student in
Higher performing, right?
Yes, higher performing
Consistently high
student in
performing.
that
Yeah.
year.
Consistently highly performing.
Exactly. So recognized by the London Metropolitan University because this is
An affiliate program,
yes.
But just for Zambia or maybe for...
So it was for Zambia, but then they put you on their website.
Okay.
So for that year,
Okay,
if you
yeah.
go as far back as 2007,
Yeah.
I'll be on that list.
Yeah.
But then it was an issue of, remember, I'm the noisemaker. No one is expecting the girl that's always making noise. I was always the only female in a
it's quite
crowd
the
of
opposite.
guys, always making noise, laughing, whatever, no? So it's like, oh, who's this? So and I went there, I was like, oh my God, like I was second.
Yeah.
This is like out of everybody in that year, I was second. And then it was that shock, like, oh, it's that little short girl, the one who makes noise. And it was like, she's actually smart, but what time does she study? Because we always see her, like I was always the one in the afternoon laughing with everyone. But I knew myself, right?
Yeah.
Like I knew at what point I need to like go full on, okay? And I also knew that I'm not the type of person who learns in class. Well, the lecturer is teach, trust me, I cannot keep still. Putting me in a place and telling me to be still for like 1 hour is torture. But I learn, right? And when it comes to the exams, I would go in and study. So it was that realizing, oh, so I'm actually a big deal. Because when you're writing an exam, you're thinking. Then I realized, wait a minute, I've actually beat a lot of guys. So that kind of like put a spring in my step, like, okay, so I can do this. And then we finished school. So back to your question, it's like, okay, we finished school. And then there's that little period where you're job hunting and just sending.
Call it the gap year, but it's not.
I only waited 6 months.
Okay.
And I got my first job. And that was where the foundation was. But it's the foundation that mattered. I was working in an environment where everyone was treated as an equal. I mean, you're in IT, you must be smart as a woman, by the way, not for the guys. This is just based on our sector. You're in IT, you're smart. So everyone would treat you as they were treating all the other guys. Because if we're going to sit at a table and discuss how are we going to do this, well, you're already in the department, so you should also. So then it was like, oh, okay, so I can speak. Where the issue came in was in meetings. See, my name also doesn't help, it's unisex. So apparently, I'm very strong in emails, so I sound like a man. I've been told this so many times. Until they interact with me. Like, I walk through a boardroom, and I'm trying to do an installation. And so you walk into this boardroom with men in suits, and they're intimidating, and I'm there with my little backpack, with my laptop, jeans and t-shirt, because I know I'm going to put cables connecting phones, so I'm not wearing stilettos or suits. And it's like, oh, hi, are we waiting for anybody else? And I'm like, no, just me. Oh, I thought we were waiting for Mr. Banda. And I'm like, no, I am she. So it's like, oh, okay. Yeah, okay, so do we start? So I sit, and first everybody's talking. Like, I don't exist, so I had to also start learning, like, okay, there's a certain time when you actually can't just keep quiet and let them give you a chance. You have to barge in, but also how you speak matters. So those are the small little things that I know men don't do it deliberately. It's because it's your environment.
And you don't have too many women playing.
We don't have to. At least now we do. But back then it was like, there's 5 of you, so everybody's going to know that she's doing this, this one is doing this. So if you're not in the office, everyone will know that you're not in the office. So the others are taking up different roles. But it's like, oh, no, but you're wearing a skirt here in heels, so okay, we'll give it to the guy. So now you're forced to carry jeans and a t-shirt and trainers to change, because that's the job you signed up for. So now then it goes back to...
Piggybacking from his question, I'm just curious, what are the 2 main things that you'd say made you change in terms of, like, maybe develop your character in the profession that you're in, that I had to become this way because of the environment? Like, what would those 2 main things be?
I think when it comes to character, it's realizing that the boardroom doesn't really have room for tears. Okay? I've had a lot of teary moments. And you're trying to elevate in your career, and you're going to be a leader. So I have my father already at home telling me, don't speak like this. He's speaking from a perspective of a man, okay, and how you will be perceived. So I've already gotten that lecture from my father. So when I walk through that boardroom, it's like, don't feel, you have to think like a man, right? So then that affects you now in the outside world, because you develop this wall, like, oh, they're not going to take me seriously if I giggle a certain way. They're not going to take me seriously if I sit a certain way. I have to read the room. If the men are sitting like this, I will have to sit like this. Those things actually affect us as women. Whilst you can slouch, I can't slouch. If I slouch, it's like, okay, look at her. Do you understand? Exactly. It's knowing I can't wear red lipstick in certain meetings. Because are you really going to listen to what I'm saying, or just look at the red lipstick? Do you understand? There are certain things that we don't talk about, but we know we have to behave a certain way. So your character is built from watching other women at the top. And through that you learn, I don't want to be like her. Or I want to be like her. And I can guarantee you that it's tougher for the women that are really tough, because when you're a tough woman, they tell you you're mean. You want to think like a man. It actually comes even from the women. And that's where it also becomes like, okay, we've already been fighting this battle. Why are we fighting each other? Like, it's not necessary. So then how do we break that? The second thing is, we won't take away the fact that nature allows a woman to give birth. If I walk in today in an interview room and I tell them, so I'm actually expecting, they're most probably going to put an X because I become a liability to the organization. But if you, George, walk in and say, I have 3 kids, they're going to think, he's a responsible dad. Stable family man. Maybe the offer we're giving him is not enough. We need to bump up his salary. Those dynamics. So now we're forced as a woman. You don't want to talk about how, I'm a mom or whatever. It's like, the number of times she'll be called away from the office because of a crying baby. So even when you're filling in the form, I think now it's reduced, but back then it was like, if you write Miss, it's like, great, she's single.
When you talk about form,
She's
about
not
in general form.
Yes, just in general form. So it's like, you are not rushing home to a husband that's going to be yelling at you for leaving the office late.
That's true.
So single, okay, that's good. Single with a child, okay, she's got responsibilities, so we need her. Divorced is like, there's drama attached to this. This one might be a problem in the office, emotionally. The same thing, single guy, yes, he will be in the office till midnight. He will be readily available. Single with kids, let's give him money, he needs child support responsibility. Divorced, he needs to be working all the time because his mental state. Married, this guy needs to, he has a family, his wife, there's a whole clan, his village people are waiting. You see the dynamics? Gender.
No, those are some very good insights. In fact, so it brings me back to, I want to circle back to the original question. So while we sort of understand your motivation for, how you turned out the way you are, and thank you for that very beautiful background, maybe a little bit deep diving into your career path. How did it progress? Where did you work? Where was your first company? What are some of the experiences you picked, positions that you've worked in? And then what did it teach you? And then maybe to crown that up, why did you decide to go full-time into, like you said, being a digital finance enthusiast as you could?
Okay.
Chairwoman, of course, but why? What? So maybe you walk us through that journey of your first job, your role, and walk us up, just like a summary of sorts then.
Okay.
Yeah.
Also, what did it take?
So to answer your question, first job was Celtel, now Airtel. So I worked there for 8 years.
Okay.
So Celtel, I was mobile data support. That meant I was dealing with mobile phones.
Right.
So at the time, I think it was, my first experience of a device was BlackBerry. So I did the training, which was like over the phone. And then the BlackBerry was unique because obviously you have to set it up, connect it to servers, etc. So that was my first experience around also dealing with databases because we had a whole subscriber database, but then we also had subscribers that were buying the phones.
Right.
And then everybody in Zambia who was buying from Celtel became our customer because we were the first telecommunications company that launched the device. Yeah. And from there, I actually, if anything, I learned a lot. And I was exposed to a lot of other cultures because Celtel really empowered its staff. The way the structure was, it was happy team, happy customer.
Right.
It wasn't customer first. Customer first in the sense that if your staff are unhappy and negative, it will pass across the customer.
Right.
But everyone was happy. I don't know any employee today that doesn't talk about Celtel as their foundation. Also because Celtel empowered its staff through training. through knowledge.
Right.
You couldn't walk into the office and say, I don't know how to do this. And everyone's like, oh, we hired the wrong person. No, no, no. They always asked, how can we help?
Yeah.
Do you need training? Yes. Do you need training? And if there was a budget, Celtel would fly you anyway. It doesn't matter. We had people go to Amsterdam through Celtel. But prove yourself. When you come back, how are you passing on that knowledge? How are you improving the system? How are you helping? So the foundation, what you're seeing now with Airtel, the foundation was set with Celtel. Because we are the guys that used to be in the office 9 to 5, you go home, sleep. 2 hours, you're back in the office till 2 a.m.
Right.
Because you're looking at the servers, what's going on. We used to rotate. So there I learned how educating yourself matters, because you can't just be stuck into one thing that you're doing. And that's where I also realized that what you're learning at school is all different, because I felt like, oh wow, this is another course altogether. It was not, yes. And then Celtel, Zain, then Airtel, right?
So you were there for 8 years
I
for
was
that
there
transition.
for 8 years,
Okay,
and there were 3
understood.
transitions, yes. By the time I was leaving because BlackBerry, then Research in Motion, had just poached me. So I became an expert in that device. So you wouldn't go into any service center and people didn't know my name. Because every time there was an issue, I was being called. Not because there was anything special about me, but because I was the first one that had access to the device. And so it became my bread. I was literally living and breathing that phone. I knew all the devices. I knew what I needed to know, those things. So I was always on YouTube. I was always trying to read books. The challenge with that one was our support was in Canada, because Research in Motion was in Canada.
Okay.
So we're awake, they're sleeping.
Yeah.
And you have a high value customer, these are CEOs of big companies, calling and saying, I have a problem with my mail. You're not going to tell them, oh, well, our turnaround time is 7 hours. No.
Yeah, you can do it.
What are you going to do?
Yeah.
You have to read, you have to Google things. And it was challenging because there was nobody else, there was no other organization doing that in Zambia. So we literally had to, and then disseminate that information training. So because of that experience and expertise, when by there I mean Research in Motion came into Zambia to look for representatives that would help them now sell the device across all provinces.
Right.
They were looking for somebody who also knew about the device. Unfortunately enough, it was one of my former colleagues who had moved to MTN who told them about me in a meeting at MTN. And they poached me. And that was when I left Airtel. And I transitioned because that was the time when I was trying to leave IT to go into a business development role. But at that time, in my department, they didn't want to let me go because I was going to leave a void. So it was also a decision that I was trying to make for my career. Like, I mean, Research in Motion on my resume was like a big deal then, right? Yeah. So I left. When I left, I worked with Research in Motion through 2 of their affiliate companies. So there was Brightstar Corporation in South Africa, that was their distributor for BlackBerry devices in Southern Africa. Yeah, so now I became the country representative for Zambia, and now everyone who was trying to buy or understand what the BlackBerry device was doing became my customer. So I would literally be at a golf tournament for MTN, selling the device to their customer. I would have a little table, setting up, doing the software updates. If Airtel were having the same, I would go to Airtel, and if they want me in Solwezi, I would be in Solwezi doing training for their high-value customers. And through that, I exposed myself now to both public and private sector. That was my first experience. But I was still young. So still a support person. There I learned how to
Could I take you back a bit? I'm sorry.
Okay, no
So you were still young. Could you give, for the sake of the audience, because we need your inspirational antics.
And age.
So
When
tell
I
us.
started work, when I started work, I was 23. Was I 23? I was 23. So 7 years later, I was 30 when I was leaving Airtel. I worked with Bright Star for a year and a half.
Okay.
Well, 6 months with Bright Star, and then we were switched to another company called oh wow, the name has gone. It was now their marketing.
Okay.
So BlackBerry also had another component from South Africa that just became their marketing. So then it was more about marketing the Z10. I don't know if you remember the Z10.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
the Z10
yeah.
is the one that BlackBerry developed that was a mimic of the iPhone, and that's when BlackBerry went down. Because Z10 was competing with iPhone 6 and Samsung 6 at the time. And it was so difficult to sell that phone to an iPhone user.
Right.
Yes. Because you talk about, oh, it can do this, and the iPhone users are telling you, but I have this, I have this, I have this, I have this. So now I had to start learning the iOS system.
So that you
because
could
that
do
was-
a
I could
bit
do
for bit comparison.
because all I knew was Android and BlackBerry.
Right.
Yeah. So unfortunately, that job was cut short because it was a company thing. The company was going down, for lack of a better word. All the other African countries were being scraped off except South Africa. I think if you remember, BlackBerry then was a big deal in South Africa. They billboards and everything. Yes. So I had like a 6-month dry spell in between where I actually took first a 3-month break. Then I got bored and I wanted to start job hunting again. In those 3 months, I developed my little fitness page.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
That's when now I started going into fitness and working out. But my fitness was targeted around moms.
Right.
Yes. So I was trying to help moms, well, you don't know, but for moms. Yes. When you become a mom, then, the stress of being a mom, etc., etc. Whilst there's a joy in being a parent, you are also just realizing what it means to have a little human being looking up to you for the rest of your life.
Right.
So how do you become a better person as a mom, also for you mentally? I found that in fitness. So I started growing my page, doing little workouts, and in those 3 months, I made a little bit of money teaching people how to meal prep, etc., etc. But then I got bored. I still love tech. So I started job hunting again, and that's how I found myself at UBA. UBA, I was heading digital banking support. Before UBA. So there was the 3 months, then month 4, I went back to Airtel, but through their training center called Centum. So Centum hired me to do training for the enterprise business team. So the enterprise business team at Airtel are the ones that look after the high network customers. So I was doing sales training. So I lasted there for 3 months. I was still job hunting.
Okay.
When Centum had called me, UBA hadn't responded. UBA responded to me 3 months later. So because that was a job that I actually wanted to go, so I switched. And so that's where that 6-month gap doesn't really look good on my resume, but there's a story there because there was growth there as well. In those 6 months, I realized how hard it is to be an entrepreneur.
Right.
Like it's hard, yeah. And then I went to UBA and I worked as, I actually went in as digital banking sales. I was there for 3 months and I was confirmed as the head of digital banking support.
All right. Wow.
Why? Because every time I was on a sales call and I get IT-related questions, I never used to call IT. I was responding to questions.
Yeah.
So first it became a problem because I needed to consult IT. I'm a salesperson.
Right.
But then eventually people started realizing, oh, she's a tech person. That's why she's having these conversations. So I was now killing 2 birds with 1 stone. And the CEO at the time said, you know what? You've been doing very brilliant as a support person. So we're confirming you as digital banking support because we are actually receiving good feedback from even your colleagues when you go on sales calls that you handle the IT stuff. So it would do us justice as a bank. And I became digital banking support. And there was another lady who's still there, by the way, who's then head of digital banking sales. So that's where the split was now. Yes. So I really enjoyed that job because there what I learned was how to think like a Nigerian.
Some
And I'm not
acknowledgement finally.
saying this because of Chinadu.
No, but if you do, it
but
wouldn't be
really,
bad.
No.
It wouldn't be bad.
I think that's where now I learned how to just go, like no excuses, because UBA is a no. So you bring in a challenge. You think you're doing yourself a favor by complaining, but what have you done about it? Okay. And it wasn't like, oh no, I'm digital banking support, so I'm going to sit back. This is not my focus circle. No, you're not going to bring that in that bank. And that is where I learned now how to. That's like a Selatu Bombeko type of thing. Like, just do the job. What did you do about it? I learned that, and I think I know my experience at UBA. I can work in any environment. I can work in any industry because of that experience. I worked there for 2 years. And in those 2 years, we had a very brilliant, I had a very brilliant supervisor, boss. He was our COO at the time, Mr. McDonald Chama. I will give him his flowers. Very brilliant man. He was like a parent to us. He would literally groom you. There were moments when you go into the office, you're stressed, tears, you're hiding, and he'll just call you to the side. What's the issue? You have people looking at you. You're now a leader. I also learned how to be a leader. You can't cry as a leader. So now then it brings me back to, I can't preach I sit at the table, but then I want to bring in I'm a woman, you need to understand that I'm emotional. Then you're not ready for leadership. So that's where that came in. I was like, okay, this is it. This was the prayer. So now am I ready to handle this position that I've been given? So all that also comes into play. That was the learning experience there, how to be tough. I got that from UBA. And also cultural shock. There's a certain way you can't talk to people. And I also learned just how important it is to respect your seniors. It doesn't matter, and seniors, I mean age. My first encounter in Nigeria, from the person at the door, opening the door, if that person is older than you, you're going to greet them with respect. Am I correct? You're going to greet them with respect. So that was also another aspect of the organization. Another thing, actually, this is an example I always give. You know when you walk into a banking hall, have you noticed that there are certain banks that the guy that opens the door, is the one who's actually showing people how to use the ATM machine, and no one acknowledges him. No one goes back and says, well, this guy should not actually just be opening the door. UBA did that. Actually moved somebody from just opening the door to being a teller, because he was always the person that was telling people, what are you here for? He would explain all the products and services. That taught me humility and empathy. I learned
just on that story, right?
Yeah.
The same one. Were you around when that happened?
I was around when it happened.
And the story is that group CEO who came over.
Exactly.
Right? And then he was visiting, right? And then he noticed the man, how he opened. I think he noticed him helping people do that, right? Yeah, maybe you tell that story because you were there.
So the beauty of that story is this guy didn't even know that this is like the CEO, group CEO, owner of UBA, right? Tony Elumelu. And yes, not group CEO as in head. No, him.
It's a beautiful story when you hear it. It's like it's made up.
And it's like, okay, so one thing about UBA, were always on point. It was, you see, I'm speaking like I'm still there. Always on point was like suits. Your suit is posh, etc. From the person at the reception to the banking hall to the teller, etc. So he walks in, and what I know is, okay, he said hi to him, was about to walk off, and he said, can I help you? Are you trying to see someone customer service? Are you opening an account? He literally started doing what the customer service person is supposed to be doing. And he gave him a flyer. And he said, this is where you can find information. And he said, okay. Asked him, what's your name, sir? Gave him a name. Great. And he walked into the banking hall. Of course, in the banking hall, everybody knows him. I mean, you can't be working for a bank and not know the owner,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, okay, scanned the situation, had meetings, etc. Then now in an executive meeting with all the branch heads and everyone, he announced and he said, oh, so there's a brilliant guy that I met at the entrance, and this is what happened, this is the conversation, etc., etc. And so from today, I would like HR to interview him, speak with him, and give him a role in the branch. Opportunity.
Wow.
When opportunity knocks, preparedness,
Yes,
and also the lesson there is how you treat people matters.
Yeah.
People will remember how you made them feel.
Yeah.
And I don't think he will ever forget that experience. And also for me, now when you look at top down, we're talking about Mr. Tony Elumel Oga, okay? The Oga of the Oga. He can walk through the White House and the doors will open for him, no introduction needed. And he can humble himself like that with all his billions. And we have people who parade themselves with one Mercedes-Benz and say, do you know who I am? You understand? So humility is very important. Left UBA because actually the funny thing is I just happened to hear about Zona. This is now 2016. I was browsing on the internet, and I happened to hear somebody talking about Zona. Then I said, Zona. I used to see the booths, but I didn't really know what was going on in those little green booths. And I went to the website and I was like, oh, wow. It was the website that attracted me. So the website was so funky, for lack of a better term. It was like Google. And I'm a creative. I've always envisioned myself in a Google office. And so when I saw the website, the culture, and I was like, I want to work here. So I was also running away from the banks first. But then also it came at a time when I had just come from my maternity leave, and now I was like feeling like I have this gap. Like I don't really know what's going on with my career.
What next?
Yeah, like what's next? Because there's the 3 months when you're...
There's a lot of time on your hands.
Yeah,
and
I'm thinking, okay. So yeah, I fit in, but not quite. Like, I mean, people move on when you go on maternity leave. Like, they're not going to sit and wait for you to come and give instructions and etc. It's technology, things have changed. So anyway, I digress, but I went into that role looking for something else. Like, what's next for me? And it came from the fact that I felt like I had more to offer than just sitting behind a desk. I get bored easily.
Don't we know it?
Unfortunately, I can't say this in an interview. And that came up a lot. You don't know how hard it was, first of all, to convince and I speak about my father a lot because he is my inspiration. Okay? So to convince my father, who has only worked in one job his entire life, Stanbic Bank. He worked for Stanbic Bank from the time it was Greenlays. Then I think at some point it was Standard Bank. Then it moved to Stanbic. So from 23 to his retirement. Now imagine a daughter that has had 8 jobs come and say, oh, so I'm quitting. And it's like, oh, Chile, really? Like, what? Yeah, so I've already gotten that stability concern from my father. So now I'm going in the interview and I'm prepared. Why should we hire you was like the worst thing ever. Because now I would be like, okay, so I think that, no, but we can see here from your track record that, but there was a reason. There was a goal. I always said I was going to be the best digital financial services expert Zambia and Africa has ever seen. My idea around that was learn from everybody else, right? See how the knowledge is now transitioned into action. How am I going to do that if I don't know how DFS affects mobile money? How DFS affects the banking sector? How it affects telecoms? how it affects the private sector,
Fintech as well.
fintech,
as well, yeah.
startups.
Yeah.
For me, that was my idea of understanding how best to do that. Work with organizations that provide those solutions. Because from CELTO, I learned how to be there. Okay, working late. If somebody is calling the call center, I stopped calling the call center for the other networks, shouting at them, saying, "Hey, what?" Because now I had experience. When it rains, back in the day, there were little drops. It goes onto the server, the cable blows up.
Wow.
That experience taught me, oh, now I need to speak to people a certain way because it's not their fault. Technology, life happens. There's tech behind that human. The bank, I had no idea how an ATM machine works. I used to wonder, how is, as tech savvy as I am, how is that money coming out? I had to work with people in the bank to understand why the bank closes at 3 p.m. Why you have all those cycles, your RTGS, your EFT transfers, e-commerce. Why somebody in the UK can send money to Zambia and it takes 48 hours, but for us, you are saying no, it will take 48 hours, maybe plus another 2 days because we don't have a switch. What's that? My banking experience helped me to interact with the Zambia Electronic Clearinghouse. When I moved to Zona, it was like more about excitement. My first day at the office, my first interview, the CEO was in shorts and a t-shirt. And I was in a suit because I was coming from the bank. And I was thinking, am I meeting somebody else? Oh, Bob Keating, very, very good leader. I walked in and he says, oh, hi, Chilekwa, nice to meet you. Come through. And the conversation was this, who are you? And I'm there, oh, so he said, no, I've got your resume. Who's Chilekwa? Why do you want to be here? And he kept stopping me. No, I actually want to know who you are, what you're inspired by. What does your vision look like? How are your personal goals aligned with the company's goals? Where do you see yourself? Like, that was an actual thing. Where do you see yourself in 5 years was how does the company help you elevate into that role that you see yourself in 5 years? I left that interview and I was so excited. I was like, I'm sure I'm going to get. And after that, got to the office and I received the call immediately. So already they're showing me how efficient they are. And I was like, oh, I definitely want to work into this company. I was already having an interview with somebody from Cape Town. Day 2, the next day, I received another invitation for the last interview. This is from Monday. Friday, I was already given an offer. Efficiency. I said, I want to work there. And I understood now why they were the first mobile money transfer service. There was efficiency. From Zona, I learned that human-centered design was actually a thing. That was the first company that actually showed me the importance of building products for people. Yes, so listening to the marketeers and hearing their challenges around the products opened my eyes to, there's this saying, if people like you, they will do business with you. If people trust you, they will give you their money or something related to that. But most organizations think just launching this colorful app is enough. No, like there's a human being behind that. We have data, yes, but how are you applying that data, that research that you've done about your products and services, and really putting it into the hands of a user? You have to think like the user for you to be able to buy into that product. Like, for instance, what would make me move my money from an account that I have been banking with, from a bank that I have been banking with for the last 20 years, because this new bank, it's not some splashy ad. I've invested 20 years into this bank. Even if I'm receiving the worst service ever, I'm not about to start just moving my savings into a new. I need to know what value they bring. How they treat me also matters. And that's why you find that even in this situation, you had customers that would only go to a specific booth, Not because that was the only booth where they could get a service. It was
So they had
because
a
of
relationship.
the teller that was speaking to them in a certain way. You had to understand that if I have a 75-year-old lady coming to the booth, and whilst out there we have this notion that they need to have their ID, etc. This lady has walked 200 meters, for argument's sake, to come to the booth to receive money from their grandchild in Lusaka. And then they reach the booth and you're telling them about IDs and all those things. How do we make her life easier without removing the fact that you're bringing in something that she didn't grow up using? So there was the human side of it is, how do we persuade the regulator that maybe this woman can come with a younger person who can actually check her documents, or some next of kin that is able to vouch for her to say she is the rightful owner to receive these funds. How do we extend that service further to allow a customer service person to ask them personal questions on the phone whilst they're receiving that money? I learned that from Zona. I can't take that away from Zona. Brilliant organization, brilliant in terms of product and service to the customer. I learned that from there. I left Zona after 3 years. My contract came to an end at the time when I was also trying to branch off into a more senior role. I felt like I exhausted my creativity there because we successfully launched a product that I saw through. Of course, there was a team here, but this is my experience, right? And my time had come. Now the question was, okay, now I'm going to go to the next interview. And now it's like, oh, no, I'm leaving. And I'm like, oh, 6 months here, 1 year here. Were you fired? I got that a lot after Zona. It's like, who leaves Zona? Were you fired? You know? So I joined Digital Paygo. And that was now, actually Zona when I was leaving, 2019, then COVID hit. So there was that 1 year gap. And during that time now, I was actually working on my own little projects online. I was consulting. That was the time when Luno Money, a cryptocurrency organization in South Africa, was trying to get into Zambia. So I was a country representative trying to get them into the market, speak to the regulators. You had FIC, Bank of Zambia, etc., etc. Unfortunately, obviously, cryptocurrency wasn't a thing in Zambia, and we know there was a circular around
how they should be treated and everything else.
Obviously, you need to be careful with that. Exactly. But I was one of the people that tried to get that in. So it was a good experience as well, because it not only gave me an opportunity to obviously visit Cape Town as well, but it was an opportunity for me to learn something new. So I started learning about Forex, cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, etc. And it was during that time that I was also invited to speak on a panel in Nigeria around Bitcoin. Yes. And I also started doing, I wasn't really trading, but I was learning about Forex trading with another company in America that I discovered in my... So I've always wanted to learn, okay? Another thing is, during this time, because it was COVID, we had the restrictions and all that. It's also part of the reason that I deliberately decided, after this is go. This is like, don't stand in my way. We almost died, right? Yeah. So my mindset just changed, like, it hit home like...
There's no time.
There's no time. What do I have to show for this journey? What time have I got left on earth to show for all the hard work at school, everything my parents,
your brilliance,
sacrificed.
your grades.
Yeah. And I said, no, I'm sorry. Now I am showing the world who Chilekwa is. And I'm going to use everything that I learned on the journey. Whilst everyone speaks about, oh, I wanted to be like this one, I just wanted to be me. But how do I take me to the world? Through understanding when to speak, when to be quiet, who to speak to, at what time, when to cut people off. That was very important. Like, I'm big on that one. Because your next level brings in new devils.
Of course. Oh.
And if you don't know how to align yourself with that season, you're doomed. This is where you find you get a major job and you just lose it because you didn't know how to handle the money that came with that job. I joined Flutterwave right after. No, sorry. I joined Digital Paygo. Worked for.
Digital Paygo does what?
Digital Paygo. I was the. So when I was leaving Zona, I was leaving as the head of strategic partnerships. When I joined Digital Paygo, I was joining as strategic partnerships, carried on from Zona. But it came at the time when I was waiting for feedback from Flutterwave. So I never sit home and apply for just one job. When I say, okay, this, now we're looking at fintechs, I will look at the best. I kid you not, I've applied to Amazon Web Services, I've applied to Google, and I go for the jobs, not, oh, I'm a data support, I apply for support. No, I will apply for senior. I've always done that. Where it says you need a master's and a PhD, I have a degree. I've applied for jobs with masters. Because for me, I believe what's here is more important than what's on paper. Right? So there's also the saying, is it what you know will get your job, but your attitude is what will keep you there? Yes, so you also have to understand that you can chase money, but if you don't have people skills, you're nothing. Because you need people to make money. So your relationships with people matter. So everywhere where I worked, when I went to a new job, I went back to see what opportunities do we have that we can collaborate on. So that's why today I can go back to Airtel and their doors will be open. I can go back to UBA and their doors will be open. I've always believed in the people aspect. Exactly. And so when I was joining Digital Paygo, it started off as, oh, okay, let me see. It still comes with my personality. Like, oh, let me see this exciting new thing. It's a startup. I want to be in at the beginning and see how far I go with this. I was there for 7 months. Then Flutterwave called. Flutterwave's interviews take 5 months.
Wow.
Sorry?
5 months.
Wow.
It's not a joke to get into Flutterwave. You're going through a series of interviews for 5 months. So by the time I was joining, I had applied as country manager for Zambia. But by the time I was joining, the feedback I was given was that I seemed to like sales, and they needed a business development manager. So I was hired as business development manager. But you know when something is yours, it's yours. 3 months in, I was confirmed as country manager. So, and they didn't have a position for country manager. It was still vacant.
So it wasn't like, you had to kill.
I could still kill 2 birds with one stone. But I've also always been that type of person. Like I go the extra mile. And for some people that are not used to that, remember I have the background of UBA. So for me, it's Sela to Bombeko. Like if you're making noise, I don't have time for your noise. Let's just work.
Interesting. Now you've translated that into getting the methodology of, because you mentioned Western setup into a Zambian type of setup. I think I was just curious around. I think from sorry, not calling the West, but
West Africa. Shame on you.
It was quite clear what you got from it, and also what has shaped your character. But I'm just curious around, what's the one thing that Zambians have Yeah.
That I don't like?
That we
Like a
probably-
superpower.
it's a superpower,
Okay.
yes. Because I think with my interactions as well with the
Chilekwa has 99
West.
things that she doesn't like. She was like, yeah, actually, let me tell you.
I'm Zambian, I can't do that.
what is the superpowers that means? Like, what's the one thing that's consistent that we can take? That in Nigerian, like Chinadu can say, okay, but you
Agree.
guys have that.
Our superpower. Tuli Nshimbi.
Okay.
You know how
We're iron.
we're iron.
Resilient.
You know how a crocodile, you know that it's there.
Yeah.
It's in the water.
Yeah.
You don't see it coming, and maybe you see bubbles, then the bubbles disappear. But it's watching you. And then just when you think, it's gone, you think you're smarter, and it attacks. That's our superpower.
Did you know that?
Most people
Don't you see how
think,
I'm tuned in right now?
most people think our laid-back, slow approach
Sure.
means we're dull. We're not dull. We're very smart people. So you don't see us coming. This is why Zambia Kuchalo is a trending thing. It's an actual thing. Like, we are there.
Yeah.
Just watching, and just when you think, I'm here, I'm the one. Yeah.
Quickly adding into that, from the question that I wanted to add, what do you think we need to do more for that to come out more?
We need to be more expressive. Like, we
Right.
should not be afraid
Right.
to say, I did it.
Yeah.
I am the one. Like, being humble is one thing. No, like, I think people have really, like, misunderstood this humbleness thing.
Yeah.
Being humble is, you see, my journey,
Yeah.
not once did I say, I did this alone.
Right.
That's not being humble.
Yeah.
Being humble is acknowledging that you didn't do this on your own. There were people. You see the names. I'm not mentioning these names because I want people to hear.
Yeah.
There were lessons. There were tears.
Yeah.
All that humbled me to who I am now.
Yeah.
To me being able to sit here and tell the story the way I have.
Yeah.
There's power in being humble. That's the humble.
Yeah.
But the humble that Zambians want you to do is,
Meekness.
George has 3 masters. If he says, oh, I have a master's in, George is showing off.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
What is wrong with George actually putting up his hand and saying, oh, I've actually done this, I can help you. We need to do that more.
Yeah.
I think I can do this. Oh yeah, I have a voice in this.
Yeah.
Speak up.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with you actually saying, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, so that was amazing. There's so many things we've talked about, like just humility and being humble and breaking that down. And we talked about basically what you were saying. I am a product of so many people, right, who have worked with so many experiences, but I'm comfortable with my equity in that situation. That has made me who I have become, and so much to go there. My question kind of takes us back a bit, right? And we said about gender equality. We said about gender equality and gender equity, right? And there's a lot of breaking down that you did, because the 3 of us, we have very intimate relationships with women, in the sense that we're very close with our sisters, right? And even maybe just the relationships also outside of that.
Yeah.
So I think my question is around, and some of the stuff that you've said, I think has given a different context, because we thought we were ready,
Right.
but you're right. Some of the things that you've talked about, validation, like how do you help someone without belittling them? You know what I mean? Yeah. How do you, especially when you take it out of like a household into an office, pulling a chair for someone is different.
Right.
Because that's restaurant etiquette. Is it office etiquette? How do you navigate that? And those kind of examples, like how do you, someone says they want help, do you go over there and help them, or be like, hey, your qualifications speak for you, so you should be able to do it without being offensive? So I think my question is really about, now that you've pointed out these issues, what do organizations need to do to prepare for this better? What are we not doing? Both for the male and the female, you know what I mean? Because you're right. If it's your time and you don't know the etiquette of your time, you completely miss it.
Yeah. No, that's a very good question, and it's a good question because it's touching on a lot of things. But for me, what I'll say will come back to my first stance on feminism.
Right.
Feminism is not we hate men.
Yeah.
Because let's face it, I wouldn't be here
Yeah.
without a man.
And
Right?
bear in mind, you mentioned your dad, so and he's
Exactly.
played a key role into who you are.
Exactly,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You will discover even the way I respond to certain things.
Yeah.
It's easy for me to be like that
Yeah.
because I watched him.
Of course. Right.
It's tougher for me to be my mother
Right.
because my mother is soft
Right.
spoken.
Mm.
Okay?
Understand.
I have to learn how to be more feminine.
Right.
So I speak more about dad because every time I was crying, mom would say it's okay.
Yeah.
Let her cry. And dad says no.
Mm-hmm.
She needs to be this way.
Yeah.
So the aspect of how do we then marry the two? I'm a woman and then I have to think like a man, but I don't want to think like a man, but the corporate space entails that I do, is thinking of it in teaching the men, not the women.
Yeah.
Like the focus has been too much. So you're empowering the woman to be brilliant, to think like a man, to walk a certain way, talk a certain way, to lead. So what are you doing to the man?
Yeah.
How are we going to meet each other halfway? You have to
Yeah.
do what my father has been doing.
Yeah.
Lend a helping hand
Yeah.
by making the woman understand
Yeah.
why you think the way you do. Like when I speak to you like this, I'm not undermining you.
Yeah.
This is the environment.
Yeah.
And outside that,
Yeah.
you're human, but there was actual work that needed to be done. The way a man speaks to his daughter is very different. If your child falls, you're going to say, no, get up, don't worry, you can do it.
Yeah.
So why can't you do the same in the boardroom? If I make a mistake as a female, you're not going to make me do better and feel like I should respect you if you're going to go down and say, like useless comment. And anyway, John, you understand? It's the same thing.
Yeah.
What was wrong with you saying, no problem, Chilekwa, good point, but I think we should take this angle.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Just to go back to his point, a bit personal to your life. I think you mentioned that you have a son, and also there's a female, a daughter. With the character, and just going back again to this conversation around, I kind of like feels the whole balance now as a parent, to balance son and to balance daughter. So how do you navigate that into bringing them into the real world and equal, because we're talking about equality, but how is that reflecting into the relationship that you have with your daughter and your kids? Yeah, no, not your kids, but your
No, I understand what you're trying to do, but the way I'll explain it is in examples, right? When I hear my oldest, because the older one is female, so they're very close, but there are times when she's talking down on her brother. He's growing up now, and he feels disrespected. I have to put her in check, because I don't want him to learn through his sisters that females should bully you, because the outside world will knock him down. Yes.
Yeah. True.
So I've literally sometimes deliberately had to scold her in front of him to give him that.
Yeah.
But this has come from me understanding what society will do to him. Not because I'm trying to intimidate my daughter, but that's a fact. There's no room for a man to cry. With my son, if I can see he's hurting, I actually hug him. And I'll tell him it's okay. He's 12. And now he's thinking like a man, and I'm saying, no, you're my child. When you're with mom, it's okay to say, mom, this is what happened at school. But at school, you will not speak like this because your friends will make fun of you. And they'll do it in front of females, and I'm a woman. I know what that will do to your ego, to your character. The women will belittle you. So it's realizing that and saying, oh, then I cannot be out there preaching feminism. Because one day my son is going to hear me talking about how, and he's going to think, Mom never loved me. And then now this is where you have, there's actually a quote. It is easy to mend men than, I need to find that quote. It talks about how it is easy to heal broken boys than men. Like, if a man grows up with anger, he's now a man. The testosterone, that's where you find now it's a whole different ballgame. But it's easier to tame a boy and teach him the ropes than when he's now a man and he's feeling, I never had love. So those are the dynamics. Whilst I can't teach him how to, to think like a man, but I understand those things because of my interaction with men, because of the relationship I have with my father, because of the relationship I have with my mother, my sisters, and bringing that together and saying, I can't separate the two. I have to be neutral. Yeah.
Maybe riding on top of that, and I think I like this component of this discussion. It has brought up I think it's very personal. I feel a lot of the things you're saying. And let me frame it in this context. So away from the profession and the triumphs that you have gained in your various jobs, away from the lessons you've learned, both on a professional and a personal basis, what would you say, and I'm trying to bring this back to the whole digital finance thing. From a Zambian perspective, what would you say, how would you define our readiness? So having worked across all these companies, private sector, finance, fintechs, now I'm even doing an advocacy sort of job, as it were. What would you say, if you were to give a scorecard on Zambia's readiness, what would you say would be the rating? That's one. And then what is the restriction we have in digital finance space? Based on your experiences, is it regulation? Is it policy? What is it? So,
rating, I would say 7 out of 10.
Okay.
And 7 because I feel like leadership matters.
Okay.
For the first time, the tech industry has been raised up here. And specific to tech, because when you look at fintech, it's not.
You talk about it from a global scale.
From a Zambian perspective,
Okay.
and I'll explain why. In Zambia, we always just talk about agriculture, mining, etc. Right?
Agreed.
Yes. Agriculture, mining. Then corporate was usually like financial services. So you talk about bank, and then maybe law, etc. But forgetting that tech is not just about a tech startup. Fintech is not just about payments. It's taking technology to the mining sector. That supplier that is raising a tender can do it online. That's fintech. It's taking technology to agriculture. We're using different mechanisms now, the weather indexing, etc. It's taking tech to the hospitals. It's taking, so fintech, the bar has been raised high because now we have a government that is deliberately creating policies around technology. That's a good thing. Once it starts from the top, it's easy to trickle it down. And why I use that example is if you look at telecommunications, right? Why do we believe everything that the regulator, and in this case ZICTA, tells us to do? How many times did we go back and say, I'm not going to register my SIM when we're doing that SIM registration, right? Didn't you still do it? You had no choice, right?
They threatened me that they will.
But it was the regulator. Do you understand why you listened?
They're going to block my SIM.
The regulator told you to do it. If a bank said, oh, look at how long it took people to provide their TPIN.
your TPIN,
Because the bank is the one that says. But when the regulator said, you will all do it, otherwise you don't get.
So
Guess
I
what?
came to speak.
Same thing with digital finance. You're talking about urban to rural migration. Why are you not starting with the rural? How can we infuse the DFS into our culture? Because we may be here preaching about technology, but in the villages, you won't go and talk to any villager without the headman knowing that you are in his turf. If he doesn't buy into your product, you will not talk to anyone. So how do we now shift that and use the leaders to disseminate that information? They will ride onto your wave, your train, if you localize the products. Why do we not have flyers in Tonga, in Vale, in Nyanja? You want everyone to speak English. That's not right. Why? We're not, we're an English-speaking country, but we have 72 dialects. We need to stop thinking the way we think. Or if I speak broken English, I'm not smart. Speaking English is just a way of communicating. I can go to France and I'll be laughed at for speaking English because they've embraced French. So we need to embrace the cultural aspect of being Zambian before we embrace the technology and all the things that are coming in the country.
We had this conversation before we started the podcast around solutions being also having that perspective, because I can imagine when you're in a male-dominated area, so meaning that the people that are making decisions are male, right? So even when pushing out the product, I can understand that in that room, because it's a male-dominated area, I'm just wondering, like, are females also being included as a voice to a solution that's maybe given out, maybe a platform that's given out and stuff in that context. So what I was actually coming from is, do you feel that most of the solutions, the fintech solutions, or maybe the fintech products, or maybe be it on a regulator perspective, there's enough representation for can you see it, can you feel it, that there's enough representation from a male perspective and also from a female perspective? If there's not, then what are some of the things that you can point out to say, okay, fine, I think that the way this was designed, because you talk about human-centered design, but all of those I think can be components that you can touch on.
Okay, very good question, and I'll respond to it in terms of credit facilities, right? If you look at the aspect around savings and then loans, it has been proven, research has it, that women are better at saving than men are. When a woman is saving, if we're looking at a family woman, she's thinking of what we're going to eat tomorrow, the clothes, school fees, even if the man is the one working, but she's planning around that money, right? If you give, I'm a woman, I'm working, and my husband, for argument's sake, gives me money. I'm not thinking, okay, let's see, I'm going to go to France, I'm going to do my hair. I'm thinking, how can I use this money? I'm probably going to buy him clothes, the children clothes. That's how women think. When it comes to borrowing money, the products are more inclined towards the man. They favor men. I'll give you an example. Today I can walk into a micro-lending institution and tell them I need 10,000 kwacha, $500. I will be told we need collateral, a vehicle. At most. It's highly likely that that vehicle is registered in the man's name. So already you're disservicing me because maybe I didn't want my husband to know that I was borrowing that money. Because there are also family issues around here. But I now can't go back to him. He's the one who's not good at saving. This is an example. Because these are actual things that happen even in the villages. So now I can't get that money because the car is not in my name. So I'm stuck. And now this is why you have more women doing village banking. Do you understand? So now they're saving amongst themselves because I understand when my friend comes and says, I need money.
You know something is up,
She doesn't want her husband to know. Not because she's doing anything dodgy. He just won't understand. Because a man is built to believe that there's no food in the house. Give me your list. If you put 5,000, he's giving you 5,000. This was the list, buy.
Yeah.
But what happens in between? There are certain things that women will not keep going back, because that's not how we are raised. You are raised to be the provider. You will be given bread, flour, and you turn it into bread, right? That's how a woman is groomed to think.
Yeah.
So because of that thinking, it's very difficult to change that in a woman's mind, because you are nurtured to nurture everything you are given. So even the way we handle money is very different. If I get 10,000, I said I needed to plan a trip, etc. Trust that there's a 2,000 that I'm putting away for an emergency that is around the home.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But a man will take that 10,000 and it will be
Exactly.
exactly for what? There's no in between. I will make a plan tomorrow. I will find money.
Yeah.
A woman can't do that. So are products being built around women? Not really all of them. We actually need to rethink, especially where credit is concerned, yes. And you'll find that even now in Zambia, the startups that are thriving are the ones with women
Yeah.
on the top,
Yeah.
the ones around credit.
Yeah.
Why? Because for the first time, there's a gender lens
Yeah.
into the designing of those solutions,
Right.
which is why you will find there are certain companies that will attract women because of their favorable collateral terms.
Right.
Property, same thing.
Yeah.
Property is in a man's name.
Yeah.
You think you've been building together, you find it's time to borrow money, it's his name. What are you supposed to do now? You
Right.
tell, the woman will tell the man, okay, now it's time to borrow money. You say, no, we don't need this money. What is it for?
Yeah.
That is worse in the village. You won't have a man discussing his finances with the woman. I can't be sitting at this table the way I'm sitting with all of you.
Yeah.
In the village, oh my goodness, that is taboo.
Yeah.
What am I even doing having a conversation like this? So there's this cultural element that we will never be able to break until we start taking those conversations in the village.
Right.
Yeah.
So Chilekwa, we have a tradition.
Okay.
The famous tradition. Yes.
What on about it?
20 questions.
Interesting.
20 questions. So after all is said and done, but these are more away from the conversation and topic that we discussed, but just loose conversations or loose questions. These are disclaimer, these are not our cards.
Okay.
Yeah, but they are from a professional organization.
Well, I'm glad you've
So you
emphasized the
have to
professional.
pick a
Okay.
question here.
Yeah.
Maybe spread them out
Yeah,
and
spread
she
them
will,
out,
yeah.
Okay,
So
cool.
pick one, whichever it is, and then
Yeah.
you could answer.
Roll of the dice or roll of the card.
Okay.
Then give it to.
Oh, I get it. Huh?
Yeah.
Yes, there. Oh wow. Okay. Okay. So the question is, what lesson took you the longest to unlearn? Not to learn, to unlearn. So what lesson took you the longest to unlearn?
That I can't always be myself.
Right.
Yeah. You know, I had this notion, I used to love using this quote actually. Be yourself, the world will adjust.
Yeah.
No, the world will not adjust to certain things. There are just certain things that are not worth fighting.
Right.
And it's centered around this conversation.
Right.
Gender.
Right.
Like there's a certain level, there's certain rooms that I will not be able to
Yeah.
walk through.
Yeah.
So I had to unlearn that.
Yeah.
Still unlearning.
When you walked to McDonald's, because you mentioned him from UBA, and you were in tears, right? Where is the place for that version of you? Because you said there's a place for you to lead, and the leader can't be crying, right? But if we're putting a gender lens, I think, on that situation, where is the place for that?
It's deliberately allowing it to happen
All right.
in the room, because there's something about, I believe we were given tear ducts for a reason.
Yeah.
I don't think they don't serve a purpose.
Yeah.
And the reason I can sit one moment, I'm emotional about something, and then still come back and be able to talk to the person that I
Right.
snapped is because I had a moment
Yeah.
to feel
Yeah.
what I needed to feel and
Yeah.
still come back and be a better person.
Yeah.
But I was allowed to do that
Yeah.
that one time.
Yeah.
So that also gave me a different level of respect for him,
Right.
because he didn't look at it
As a sign of weakness.
as a sign of weakness. It made me better.
Right.
And it also made me lead the team better.
Of course. Yeah.
Where I was frustrated and leading with emotion,
Yeah.
I was able to now think about what I was about to say that could be damaging to somebody's career
Yeah.
because of what I was not allowed to feel.
Right.
Some pretty strong words.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true.
Don't worry.
She does some damage there. She does. She
We're
does.
allowed to cry.
So there's something that you brought up that I find fairly fascinating, and we could use this as part of the means to round up, looking at the time. Thank you so much for being a fantastic guest, by the way. And just so that you have this declaration on camera, we are going to get you to come back. So let's say your parting words. Give us your top 3. Strange enough, 3 is company, right? Yeah. Give us your top 3 takeaways or advice that you're going to throw to any woman who is starting the journey just like you.
Yeah.
In your own words.
Yeah.
Do not be afraid to make mistakes, because I learned from my mistakes. And your mistakes are what shape your future. Because without those mistakes, you will think you are the best thing that happened to that situation. But you're not. There are other people that came before you, and there will be more people, more brilliant people that will come after you. So be okay with making mistakes, because you'll grow from that.
Okay, that's one. We're waiting for 2 more.
Oh, I thought I've like...
The first one.
Yeah.
Okay,
Quick two.
be you, the world will adjust.
Okay.
The world will adjust.
Yeah.
Chase people, not money.
Right.
Fantastic.
So 1 is
Make mistakes,
2
be you,
and adjust.
The world
the
will
world will
adjust.
adjust. I know I'm contradicting myself because I said that
Yeah.
was what messed me up, but it's
Okay,
very
yeah.
important to be yourself.
Yeah.
Okay, then 3.
Can I just explain the be you, the world will adjust?
Yeah.
It's not to take away from... People think being you is bringing all of you, like your bad attitude and just saying this is who I am. No.
Yeah.
Being you is... I'm not trying to be like Bill Gates.
Yeah.
I want to be Chilekwa.
Yeah.
Bill Gates is Bill Gates because he's Bill Gates.
Bill Gates, right?
Jeff Bezos is Jeff because he's Jeff.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be like Mark Zuckerberg. I want to be Chilekwa.
Mention a female character though.
Mention a female character. You see what this environment has done? I was mentioning tech. I will be the next one that the next person on the podcast will mention. So I will be the female example. It can only be Chilekwa Banda. No. But I will give people their flowers. The third one was really around the notion that, and this is not just for females,
Yeah.
you know, the way we all work so hard. We're
Yeah.
chasing money.
Yeah.
And that is where the problem is.
Yeah.
You chase the people,
Yeah.
and that money will come.
Will follow.
Yeah.
Word. I like that. So, I would like to say thank you very much for gracing us with your presence. It's unfortunate that we can't unpack this any further, but be rest assured we shall be inviting you back here.
I can't believe I just gave examples of men.
I know.
I'm still thinking about that.
I know.
I'm
And we're
gonna
not
be
judging you for
crucified.
it.
I will be crucified.
I'm not judging you for it.
There's a whole floodgate.
We are not judging you for it.
Of
Maybe by the
women
time
coming
by the time
after
we invite you back, you
Yeah.
then have the examples for females.
Yeah, I'll be like, no.
So on that note, we'd like to go around the table. My colleagues would have something to say. So Gilbert, maybe parting words.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for tolerating these males, right? And I think what you've done is opened the eyes for the men that have to deal with the women in the corporate spaces. There's so much to unpack there. And I think the like you're saying there is a topic, like we need to have a whole podcast just about that.
Right.
You know, so yeah. Perfect, man. You're awesome.
George.
Thank you. George, you know that's not what he meant.
Stop. Don't make this about this, please. Your words, your final words.
Oh yeah. My final words. I think that there's a lot. I would actually put it as, I think I've received and also have a whole different perspective from a female perspective, but only that they were describing what I usually see, and these are things that I read about, things that are theoretical, but listening to it very practical context has given me a softer way to experience women. My sisters, even the ones that I even worked with in the professional space, and I think I appreciate that, and really come out from you, and I think you've been a mother, you've been a CEO, you now in your next adventure. I think all of that like makes sense on what those dots mean, right? And also what they've shaped into your life. So I think it's very much on, you're an inspiration, and I think I'm inspired by your work.
Thank you.
I'm almost going to cry, but I don't think it would not work.
You can cry in private.
True. And I think on that note, I'd like to just throw in my 2 cents in. You've been phenomenal, quite great insights. Like Gilbert has rightly pointed out, we're looking forward to having you back here. There's so many points you've laid across, and even just inspirational. So yes, I'm a man, but there are so many lessons even for me. And like you said, those lessons are non-gender specific. They are just lessons in life that anyone can pick up from. Thank you for helping us bring that out. On this note, we'd like to thank you for so graciously giving us your time, your energy, you know. Yes, this is like one of those kumbaya things, hands-on, I know. You know, we'd like to do this again, and therefore on this note, thank you very much for being part of Three's company, Three and company, yes. We'll get to the point, hopefully, where we'll give you a plaque or something.
No, thank you. It's been awesome being here. Like, good
All
job.
right.
I'm clapping now.